Hey guys, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It may sound crazy, but somebody has to look at the remaining 5 weeks of schedules because the NFC West is such a weird, disastrous, but accessible mess. The NFC West is one of those we're accessible to everybody divisions this year. Before I get to it, though, I do want to share that you buy Puesto. Puesto. They're not giving up. They're not giving up at Puesto, okay? Why would they? Why would they? They're committed to great food. They're committed to getting it done. They're committed to doing it right, and they are at Levi Stadium. Puesto, Mexican artisan kitchen. It is as good as it gets. They got 2 locations inside of Levi Stadium. They got Santa Clara, they got Concord, they got SoCal, they got Orange County. It's gonna be 65 degrees, no wind. It's gonna be nice. Sun's gonna be out at Levi Stadium on Sunday. You know what that means? Margaritas at Puesto. Go to one of their 2 locations at Levi Stadium. They got the fresh strawberries. They got the fresh lime juice. It's gonna be so good. Mix that with maybe a Baja fried fish taco, maybe a crispy shrimp taco, maybe a filet mignon taco. The 49ers have not exactly been filet mignon this year. I mean, if we're being real, it has not been filet mignon. It's been some other type of meat that, well, we're not gonna talk about it. You're not getting that, don't worry. You're not getting that. You're getting the good stuff. Puesto's operating at a higher level than the 49ers offense or the 49ers defense right now. And, it's what you would expect. If any of you have ever been, then you know how good it is. They got the chicken al pastor, the lobster, the shrimp. My personal favorite, I keep telling you about the short rib quesadilla taco with the crispy melted cheese, the Jalisco salsa, the radish, the guacamole, the cheese, the ooey gooey melted cheese, so good. Carnitas, swordfish, mushroom, ribeye, on and on and on and on and on. Margaritas more than you can count. It's an awesome place to hang. So if you're thinking, well, it's Tuesday, game's not till Sunday, I want to go there now, go. It's actually Taco Tuesday as we do this. Chicken flautas, chicharrones, chilaquiles, potato taquitos, shrimp gobernador quesadilla. Gobernador, get in my belly. I love it. You're going to love it too. And if you're going to Levi Stadium, swing by one of the 2 locations. This is a family run, family owned, family founded, just killer operation. The Adler brothers are Niner fans, and they are going to continue cooking. Basically, Puesto is comfort food right now. It's comfort food always, but it's definitely comfort food right now. So appreciate them, appreciate you appreciating them, and go check them out. They're fantastic. All right, I decided to look at schedules today. Why? Because I have hope. Not really, but because somebody has to do it. It's December 3rd as we do this. If you're listening to the pod or watching the pod, it's December 3rd. Okay. And when you're 5-7 on December 3rd in this division, while most hope is lost, all is not. I hate to say that. This is not a hope topic. This is not a hope pod necessarily, but just here's what's going on in the NFC West. Seattle 7-5. The Rams are 6-6. Arizona 6-6. The Niners are 5-7. The Niners play now. Thomas Jones is Bears. Thomas Jones is Bears. A lot of people are coming out doing the Thomas Jones. This is a leader of men thing, which is great. Maybe he is. Maybe he's their next head coach. He might even lead them to a win this week. The 49ers are better than the Bears. They are better than the Bears. Despite all of their issues, they are better than the Bears. And the Niners are not playing good football. So when you look at the Niners, you go, you got to beat the Bears. Okay, you're 6-7. Might lose this game. You got to beat the Rams. All right, that gets you to 7-7. You got to beat the Dolphins. That gets you to 8-7. Now, anybody with any functioning brain cells right now goes, hey, guy, what makes you think the 49ers are going to win 3 in a row? I'm just telling you this, the NFC West. Look at this. Seattle plays Arizona this week. One of them's winning, one of them's losing. You want it to be Seattle that's losing because no one out of this division is getting the wild card, right? But there's a world where there's 4 9-8, or at least 3 9-8 teams week 18 after 18 weeks of football. whether it's the Rams, the Niners, and the Cardinals, or the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Cardinals, it's all on the table. Okay? It's all on the table. But this week, if you lose to the Bears, all of this ends. Like, we end it all. This week, you lose to the Bears. Any conversation about how it all plays out goes out the window. So my point is not that there's hope. My point is not that they're about to pull it together. That's not the point of any of this. The point of this is that I think everybody right now is doing the math, it is all over, and it's almost all over, but that comes next week. If you win this week, just look at it this way. If you win this week, you're 6-7. The Rams play the Bills this week. So let's say they're 6-7. The Cardinals, they play the Seahawks this week. So the Cardinals could be 7-6, and Arizona could be 7-6. If I just blindly said, all right, here's a division with 4 weeks left, somebody 7-6, somebody 7-6, somebody 6-7, somebody 6-7, you'd say, is anybody out? The answer to that's no, right? So I know some of you hate it. I hate even saying it. I don't want to be the, oh, look, there's hope guy. That's not what I'm trying to be here. I don't want to be. I'm just being the math doesn't fail them until next week if they lose. On the stream, LOL, a 3-game winning streak. How? Chris, guys, stop. They ain't winning a single game left. Hey, I'm just telling you, if they win this week, and that's probably the problem with putting up 5 more games, it's very easy to shoot it down, right? It's very easy to shoot it down. Rightfully, you should be shooting it down. I shoot that down. This is not likely, but it's not dead until you lose another game. That's the point. That's the point of this. All right. So, and here, I guess the other point would be this. Like, I'm sorry, not sorry. The Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Rams historically, but not these Seahawks, not these Cardinals. They're not getting the respect of, well, they're not losing any games they shouldn't lose. They're not getting that respect from me. Okay. Not yet, at least. By the way, did you guys see Robert Griffin had a big, somebody sent this to me, Niner fan. So what do you think? RG3. What do you think of Robert's points here? Right. He had a long post on X. He said, "Dear football fans, this is a safe place." All right. That's an interesting. Okay, here we go. He says the Niners have lost their aura and have become mistake merchants this year. Here are 3 reasons why. So I want to know if you buy these reasons. Let's never use that feature. Brandon Ayuk's offseason negotiations threw off the chemistry of this team. Not because he was at fault for getting his money, but because the organization let it drag out all offseason into training camp. You know, I hate some of his points, but he actually makes some good points. All right, we'll start with this one, though. Ayuk's negotiations threw off the chemistry of the team. Didn't help. There's definitely truth to that. Now, Ayuk did play 7 games this year. So forget about his effect on everybody else. The effect on himself was he was not mostly ready to play. The irony is his 2 best games came in losses. He had a great game against the Arizona Cardinals. They lost the game. 27 catches, no touchdowns in 7 games. Honestly, at the end of the year, after we've gone, like 2 months without talking about Brandon Ayuk, go up to anybody who's a Niner fan and say, how many games did Ayuk play this year? And my guess is most people say 4, 5, not 7. Felt like less. Not okay. So he threw off the chemistry of the team, not because it was his fault for getting his money, but because the organization let it drag out. They were both at fault. Where I disagree with Robert here is to put it all on the organization. The organization absolutely put itself at risk, and I do think it had an effect on the team when it was all said and done. But Ayuk also contributed to the bad aura, if you will, from Robert. Because then he goes on and real things happen. His injury, McCaffrey, Trent Williams being hurt. I'm not going to read all this stuff. The Niners aren't protecting the ball at all. 27th in giveaways, 20th in turnover margin. I don't think they're offensive turnovers. They're obviously an issue when your margins are thin. I don't put that at the top of the list this year. I do put their inability to stonewall at times on defense. What's always been the saving grace, Griffin writes, for the 49ers isn't that they're the Avengers on offense, but the strength of the defense. This year, the defense isn't playing inspired football. All over the tape, you see a lack of effort and bad body language. It's why they're ranked 25th in defense and 19th against the run. I think all over the tape, you see a defense that can't stop the run. I don't think it's, and I said this the other day, and then I heard Shanahan say this, and somebody asked him about effort the other night, and I think he wanted to say, like, we suck at times, not we're not trying. I've always used the baseball thing, which is teams that don't hit look like they don't care because all you see is them jogging out ground balls to second. They top a ball to third. They're jogging. A little looper to right field. They're jogging, walking back to the dugout, walking back to the dugout, walking back to the dugout. And I think that's part of what's happening with this team. It's not that their defense doesn't care. It's that they're not good enough. You see them giving up big plays. I think part of it was Jair Brown was drafted to replace Talanoa Hufanga, to replace, not to complement, but to replace. I think their plan was Hufanga is going to be gone. We'll replace him. Once Hufanga gets expensive, we'll just let him go. We'll replace him with Jair Brown. And that's not the solution. Now, Malik Mustafa might be the solution, but Jair Brown has not proven to be he hasn't been as good as they wanted him to be. Now, he's an NFL starter, but he hasn't been as good as they've wanted him to be. On a team with more talent around him, maybe. If he's out there with Hufanga, Andre Greenlaw, I think Greenlaw has been a major, 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 major factor in all of this. This is why you don't let Ayuk negotiations linger into the offseason. You get the business done early. I actually agree with that. The 49ers were distracted all offseason. Now they're paying for the negative vibes during the year. I don't think it's that. No one is scared to play the Niners right now, says Griffin. I agree with that. They can still turn things around, but getting their aura back without Ayuk, McCaffrey, Trent Williams for the time being will be more difficult. The whole thing resting on the shoulders of the bad vibes left by the negotiations of Brandon Ayuk. No. I think there's too many other real things going on here, like Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan not finding ways to score in the red zone without Christian McCaffrey. I know this is sensitive. I do think your arm strength once you get into the red zone matters. Bobo says, comment, Kyle the choke Shanahan turned Brock Purdy into Jimmy G and has taken the joy of football away from him. Some would argue he actually needs to turn him into, he hasn't turned him into Jimmy G. That he needs to turn him into Jimmy G. Wasn't it stunning when they ran a screen the other day to Christian McCaffrey and it worked? Like all these, Debo has not, none of that stuff has worked. But there's some of this stuff doesn't happen at all. Their play action percentages are way down. I think Larry Krueger pointed that out early in the year when you go look at it. And some would argue they need more Jimmy G out of Brock Purdy, not less. They gave up almost 80 points in 2 games. So is it bad vibes left over from Ayuk? No. Did that affect them in the offseason going into the season? Yeah, but I think it affected them more because Ayuk was not ready to play. And that is like, if you're the organization, you have to have an understanding about, we know it affected Debo. We know it affected one of the best defensive players in the league when it was his turn. And it'll probably affect Brandon. Like, you have to know your people. If it affects Debo, okay. If it affects Bosa contract negotiations, that should get your antennas up. Like, wait a second, this is the biggest grinder of grinders. It affected him. Now here's Ayuk, who works hard, but he's not he's a little more reserved. He's not a locker room leader. It's not what the team looks to him to be. You wonder, how will he handle kind of all of this adversity? You saw it at the end of last season, cryptic posts, all that kind of stuff after the Super Bowl. So you had to know you were dealing a little bit with somebody who may not handle the business of it the way that you want, or may handle it like a lot of human beings might handle it. So then he comes in, finally, you get it done. You almost trade him. You try to trade him. And I actually understood some of it. Like, it's not 100% organization or 100% Ayuk, But Brandon Ayuk not coming in ready to ball for whatever reason, his fault, their fault, everybody's fault. That felt to me like it affected them, their aura, more than whatever happened in June, July, August, September. McCaffrey being hurt, not being around. You didn't get to practice together. I don't know if any, I'm sure some people caught this comment, but Shanahan made a comment the other day that this team isn't as good as last year's team. And he said, like, and going back into camp, as if he knew the whole time this team wasn't as good as last year's team. And, you know, you can understand why it felt that way, because he didn't have his best players around. Maybe that's who he was referring to, right? McCaffrey wasn't around. Ayuk wasn't around. It was really, and I said this a few times during camp, like when you have a position of depth and then you take away one piece, it can look so thin so fast. And there were days where you'd go out there and their receiver group, it's like, why is Terez Owens getting so many targets today? Like, this is not productive practice for the team that's going to have to try and go out and win a division. Obviously, it happened at running back once Elijah Mitchell went down. But, you know, Mason was a productive runner. He's just not Christian McCaffrey in so many other ways. But leadership matters. Dre Greenlaw plays with a certain level of leadership that's critical to this defense. And they didn't have it. And Hufanga, while he's not a perfect player, has a certain amount of leadership that his play brings. And they didn't have it. And they didn't find the other pass rusher opposite of Bosa. So, you know, there's so much going on with this team that's real. That's so much more than aura or vibes. But there's no denying when you play like this, when you lose leaders, aura, vibes, all that stuff is bad. A comment: Kyle scapegoated Matt Ryan, Jimmy G, Steve Wilkes. Soon it'll be Nick Sorensen and Brian Schneider. Kyle needs to pay a special teams coordinator that can overcome the fact that he doesn't care about special teams. And I've said this a lot. Like, you're around a lot. You go listen to 10 coaches talk. They value 3 phases, special teams. And you would think Kyle, special teams affects field position which affects your offense. You'd think he'd care more about it. He gave a vote of confidence to Nick Sorensen yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I listened to the press conference. And I don't think it means anything. Other than, I think he respects Nick Sorensen. I don't think it means that he's not going to hire Jeff Ulbrich in the offseason. But I do think it means if he hires another defensive coordinator, that Sorensen's sticking around. It goes back to another position, something like that. But, you know, you do have to acknowledge that from a personnel standpoint on the defensive line, and especially at linebacker, they're just not good enough. I mean, Devondre Campbell was not their first choice. Actually, as somebody who was critical of him early in the year in camp, didn't love his whole blaming the Packers, but kind of blaming the teams for not using him correctly. He's limited. There's no question, but you might think I'm crazy. Campbell's been slightly better than I expected him to be. No, he's been a lot better than I expected him to be. Yellow Spy with a super chat comment. This season is done, but I think they need to put up some film they can feel good about. I don't think the pick will be good enough to matter much. Well, if you're drafting 15th, then you don't come into the draft going, you're going to get one of the best, like elite top tier. You're not getting a top tier. You're not getting the top tier rating offensive lineman, defensive end, whatever. But you can still get great players with the 15th pick. We just won't know. Like, let's look back at the NFL draft 2024. Let's just give this a quick look here. Laiatu Latu, 15th pick last year. Very good. The rating on the tackle. Like, if you could get, well, now this draft was unique, right? Because Laiatu Latu was the first defensive end taken at 15. Because you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12. This upcoming draft is not going to have 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12, let alone 6 quarterbacks going in the first round. Your top offensive tackle going 5th, which is where Joe Alt went. That's unique, right? Normally, if you have like a blue chip offensive tackle, which is what Joe Alt was, he's probably going to go higher than 5th. And oh, that's stupid. Your number two, yeah, I mean, you had 4 tackles go in the top 14. I don't know. I mean, you can get a really good player at 15. Like if you're drafting at 15, if we're sitting there at 15 on draft day, we're looking at the 49ers going, go get a good player. Go get the best. You know, I can already hear what we're all going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about like the 3rd best tackle. Do you move up to 12? You know, they don't have a lot of movement ammo here. Does Debo get combined with some pick swap or something like that? I don't know where you're sending them exactly to make something like that happen, but depends who gets jobs where in terms of head coaches. Are you trading? Are you trading 15? Are you trading 15 to the Falcons for Kirk? No. You wouldn't trade 15 to the Falcons for Kirk Cousins. Stop, guy. You're being silly. So anyway, I mean, like I know people don't get fired up on December 3rd about the 15th pick, but here's what we know for a fact. Some Pro Bowlers getting drafted 15 or later in the 2025 draft. That's a fact. Sean asked, who wants Debo at this point? You know, Sean, it's a fantastic question. Mario said, question from Mario. Ooh, this is a good question. Oh, shoot. Didn't mean to block you there, Mario. How concerned should we be seeing challenges Brock seems to have in wet weather? Well, it's a concern. I would love to have seen him in the postseason. I didn't think. I was texting with John Dickinson, who was at the game the other day. I was like, does Brock look? I thought he didn't look great. He thought he looked normal. In the snow, you don't play in a lot of those games, especially in the NFC. So it's a thing. It's not near the top of my list with Brock Purdy right now. You know, it does matter. I'm not dismissive of it, but it's not at the top of my list with Brock right now. Ashton Ginty? Tribe says, guy says everything is fine. We're going to run the table and beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl by 30. You know, if that's how you want to interpret it, I can't stop you, I guess. I don't care. Fish and Chip says Shanahan's contract makes it financially Harry Carey to fire him. Bad situation. Shanahan, come on. Disagree. You're not firing Kyle Shanahan. It's not the solution. If you're looking for the solution. Ashton Genty will be gone before we pick. Willie? That's a great question. I'm gonna agree with that. If we're talking about 15, will he go in the top? I mean, running backs just don't go that high. By the way, you can watch him on Fox on Friday night. UNLV, Boise State is a hell of a game on Friday night, 5 o'clock Pacific. Saturday is a hell of a day in the NFL. We got Iowa State, ASU. That's the Big 12 champ game, 9 a.m. You've got Georgia, Texas, in the SEC title game, number 7 versus number 3, ABC. We got Penn State, Oregon, number 4 against number 1, CBS. And then the game that at the same time at 5, Clemson, SMU, which is a big game, especially if Clemson were to lose. There's all kinds of domino effects for the college football playoff there. So, and we're still waiting to find out if Tim Skipper's getting the Fresno State head coaching job or not. Comment: ownership gave Kyle and Lynch too much power. Oh, this is what you do. You give the general manager, you give the head coach all the power, and the owner stays out of it. Now, they don't have all the power. Parag Marathe has power. Like one thing we'll talk about, producer Connor was putting together a list. He's like, why don't we talk about the things to watch for down the stretch? I'm like, you're thinking like a content creator, thinking like an old school radio host. And there definitely are things, and we'll do that. The Niners know now, today, how much money they do or they don't want to pay Brock Purdy. There's for them, there's not like, let's see how Brock handles things down the stretch. They know. They already know what contract they want to offer him. They already know. Comment: pick offensive, defensive lines. Yeah, that's it's the offensive line situation. I think there are plenty of legitimate criticisms that don't involve concluding the head coach needs to be fired. One hallmark of the Shanahans probably is that you just don't allocate. You don't spend a ton of your money on your offensive line, because of your run scheme. Now, they used the Pooney pick. That nailed it. They spent a lot of money on Trent a few times. But their philosophy is definitely like, unless it's a top tier guy, you just don't overpay there because our scheme can make it work. I know there's some positive momentum on Ben Barch right now. And I think the 49ers correctly in this last draft maneuvered offensive line. There were people that wanted him to take Kingsley, who's not been good. There was the offensive lineman from Washington that people wanted in the second round. And they basically determined, Shanahan said it, there wasn't really a guy that we believed in at offensive line, especially with the second round pick. We weren't going to do it just to do it. And I think that was the right thing. But drafting in the first round, you're going to be in a position where you might, if you're in the middle of, if this thing continues to go the way it's gone, and you're in the middle of the first round, you might be in a position where you can do something bold and move up for a blue chip offensive lineman. And, they are paying the price of the Trey Lance trade, which was a bad trade and a bad pick, because of how much they had to give up. It's really affected their depth. And when your depth is affected, you need volume of picks, and it makes it tougher to go all in for another guy that you think might be a blue chipper. Because even if you hit and get the blue chipper, right? Even if you hit on Trey Lance, you still have some of the depth issues that come with it. That's the price you pay for getting a blue chip guy. So for a team with depth issues, it seems like it may be a little bit of a very, very significant risk. And if they're going to do that, they better know what they're doing. Hey, by the way, good night last night. I tell you this right now, Prize Picks code GUY, make a $5 lineup, immediately get $50 into your account. I'm sorry to point, but when you get the chance to take Jameis Winston more than half an interception in a game, you take it. I took it last night. I recommend you do the same. Go to appreciate the support. If you haven't jumped on Prize Picks yet, it's a great time to do it. Sign up with the code GUY, GUY. There's also a link down in the description. Get $50 immediately into your account. And I also want to tell you about Tamber, Tamber, Tamber.co. You're thinking about the holidays coming up. It's the perfect time to buy the gift of forever for somebody in your life, or maybe for yourself. Tamber.co. You go there, you send an email, and we'll get you a quote for an interview with a loved one. So that means you want for yourself, you want to leave your stories for somebody, make sure they're archived, make sure they're saved, or a loved one in your life. You go to timbre.co and you get not just a sit down interview with somebody in your life, but also a packaging of it in terms of it gets cut up into little mini stories that you can enjoy together now before it's too late. Timbre.co. Go check it out. Send an email and contact sheet at the bottom of that page. Oops, I clicked it away. And find out more information there. Really cool. You can also listen to some samples if you're still unclear there. All right. Is Kirk Cousins coming next year? No. No, he's not. Does the 49ers lost hope rest of the season? Do the 49ers lose? Is hope all? I think Greg's asking, is hope all gone? It's almost gone, but it's not completely gone. That's for another day. All right. I'm off to LA. I've got, if you're into college hoops, USC Oregon on Wednesday night on Big Ten Network. USC Oregon on Wednesday night. Conference play begins in the Big Ten. USC Oregon Wednesday night. Check it out on Big Ten Network. And, if something happens, I'll be back here. Otherwise, Thursday will be the next live show. That's the plan at least, but, things happen.